sex for women and sex for men
very different.
Is very different. Let's just put that out there right now.
Once that honeymoon phase was gone, that infatuation, what you're left with is just love. And I'm not talking about the romantic kind. I'm talking about the patient kind.
Yeah.
The love is patient kind, right? And a lot of it. If you don't pray, you'll become prey.
It's like, okay, Xavier, like you are here and Adrian, you are right over here, right? And then God is right here at the center at the top. If Adrian is constantly going after God and Xavier is looking after God, as you guys are drawing closer to God, you guys are also drawing closer together.
All right, guys, welcome back to 716.
Guys, what is up?
We are back with another great episode.
Yes. And this is a little juicy, I think.
This one is, and it's a personal one too. It's a little bit more focused on us. I know we've given you guys a lot about like other people. Like it's been more of testimonies and stuff like that. Other than last week's, which was about Halloween. But I wanted to bring it back. I wanted to bring it back into our lives. You know, bring in some vulnerability, bring in some personal stuff.
Yeah, actually, when was the last time that we spoke about like any testimony, anything regarding us? I mean, it's been a minute, right? Because
the last time we did anything related to us was probably when we came back, which was the beginning of this season's of the podcast.
Right, and that was just like a little snippet.
So. But other than that, like we've kind of like kept it towards more of, you know, people coming in and people talking about their experiences, stuff like that. And it's mainly because, you know, we get fed, you know, by other people.
Right.
And we also want to show the world of Christian conversations.
Right. And like also just going back to always, have we done like a full episode of like 716, the name? And I think we should really dive into that one day.
Why 716
Why
exists?
716? Why the name?
I believe we did, but I don't think
we might need to retouch up on that a little bit. But basically, it's all about showing fruits, right?
Yeah.
And what it is when you're walking a Christian, the kind of fruits that you give out. And that doesn't always just mean just me and you, right? Xavier and Adrian. Those fruits can be shown through other people.
Yeah.
And that's why it's been like a beautiful thing to like have other people here, because it shows the world of like the fruits that we can all share, right? And what we give off and give into the world. So yeah, I think it's been really great to like have other people.
Yeah, because you know what? It shows other people, you know, because it's like one thing is seeing it from us, and then it's just the same people all the time. But you're seeing it from other Christians that go through their struggles or have their testimonies and have their faith grow, you know, their spiritual lives grow, and you get to see it. You get to witness what that looks like in other people's lenses, you know?
Yeah. And again, like it does also feed us. And there's been so many times where even someone's testimony is speaking to me while I'm going through something, and I'm just all like, okay, I see you, God. Like I see what you were doing there. So it's an awesome
person,
thing.
You know, that other person might not have a single idea
of what we're going through, or
but the same way it speaks to us, it's the same way it speaks to many others.
Yeah.
You know, but speaking about spiritual growth, we're actually on this topic of marriage.
Yes.
And with marriage and being married for 7 years, there's a lot of growth that happens spiritually, personally, and within your marriage.
And this also kind of, so the reason why we also wanted to talk about this now is because it's been crazy, but a year ago we did our cuffing season just like series, and it was so awesome. So we kind of wanted to revisit that, but when we talked about like the little, like all the stages of being cuffed up, basically,
right.
Which is so funny. Is that even a saying anymore?
I don't think so. I think that's
these
like
Gen
long
Zers are
gone.
like, you guys are so old.
Yeah, but that's not our audience, really.
Right. Well, whatever.
We got a bunch of 30-year-olds in here.
Right. Well, yeah. So basically, it's talking about like that time where it gets like comfortable, cozy. Yeah. We're talking about love and all the things. So we kind of, So we kind of wanted to revisit that a little bit, but obviously within our own testimony, and we're excited to be sharing that today.
So the idea of you know, the 5 struggles within our marriage, it really comes down to not necessarily struggles, but more of experiences, and it's one of those things that it's 5 of those things that just stand out.
Yeah.
Those things that maybe other people are going through it as well.
Yeah.
You know, and we wanted to share that as a way of giving advice, or maybe just like, you know, opening someone's eyes to possibilities of maybe a possible change in their life, or whatever the case may be, right?
Right.
But that's what this is about. So the first topic that we want to dive into is sex. You know, we're not going to go into this like, oh, we're going to talk about our sex life. No, it's not that. It's more on expectations of sex.
Yeah.
You know, because everybody gets into a marriage, like, well, first of all, everyone in the world, right? The world sees sex as something that you just do with a significant other. But
if that.
Well, okay. Something you do. Something you do with
because
someone
you want
else.
to, right?
Because you want to. Sometimes it's just pleasure, right?
Right.
But in a Christian mindset, it's sex. And then, it's it's marriage and then sex. Like, yeah, it's marriage and then sex.
Right.
You get me? So, but the thing is, we get married, we don't have sex, so we don't have this experience. So all we have is expectations, fantasies,
right,
ideas of what sex looks like. But then you get married,
and also like let's broaden it up a little bit, because you know there is also a lot of people that maybe got married after sex, you know, but there's still a difference of sex within marriage and then sex outside, right? Because sex outside of marriage, I feel like just becomes more of like just your own pleasure, right? When of course God made it for pleasure, but also like it's just something that's so much deeper than just that, you know? And those are things that you really get to learn and experience it once you're married. So we got married at 23, right? So my expectation for things were very different. So that's what we're talking about, right? As far as like what were things that we learned or what were struggles. So sex for women and sex for men
very different.
Is very different. Let's just put that out there right now, okay? Because it's like, you know, when you're not married and you're just thinking about like, well, I can't wait to be married so that way, you know, this isn't a sin and I could just have sex every single day. You know, that's the expectation. And then you realize that like life does happen. You are tired. There's this. Like, oh wait, this is actual like physical, you know?
You go into it thinking that you're gonna have sex every day, and that's just not the case.
Yeah, because you're just so infatuated and so like, you know, into this person.
So sorry to bum anybody out if you're currently engaged and you're like, I can't wait for this day.
But also, I mean, listen, here's the one thing that I have learned is that everyone's sex life is very different. You know, some people maybe can go like every single day, and I just don't know how the body would function that way. But I mean I'm no one to like judge. Like maybe some people can like that.
I was looking into it. The average person, the average couple is like maybe twice a week, maybe.
Yeah, that's actually even a lot for some people.
And then there's the many that find that a lot, you know. And some people might go once a week, you know. But
actually I remember, I don't know if it was on one of our episodes, but I do remember having to do research, and they were saying that like even at some point it could be even once or twice a month. I mean, you know, it comes with age. I think it comes, you know, what season in life you are too. And I think just because, you know, there is even a point when, you know, a woman just finished giving like birth.
Oh, yeah.
Where she's not able to at all.
Yeah, you're talking about conditions now.
Right. So, but I think that for sure, like sex is a beautiful thing that shouldn't have anything where it's like a reward. You know, sex shouldn't be something where it's like, well, you did this for me, now I'm gonna repay you with sex.
Yeah, no, sex should merely be
or withholding, you know.
Right. It should never be like a punishment either.
Right.
It should never be used as a punishment. It should never be used as a manipulative tactic either. You know, sex was meant to be a blessing within marriage.
Right.
And not a way to control someone.
Yeah.
Sex is honestly a blessing, but if you use it as a weapon, it's gonna like you're going to mess up your marriage in that sense.
Well, there's also a Bible verse that talks about even what it is to withhold sex from your partner, where like it's like your body as a wife, your body belongs to your husband,
Yeah.
and vice versa.
Yeah.
And it's even biblical where I'll see if I can find it. But it talks about how if there is any withholding, it's because both people are in agreement of the withholding for whatever reason, right? Maybe you're trying to fast and you're just trying to withhold from everything, or maybe there's a medical condition, like there's an agreement, right? But to say like,
understanding,
well, he's not loving me the way I should, so I'm just not going to. And little do you know, like there's just so much. There is just something beautiful that happens within it that sometimes like things just will naturally get better. Like, and it's not even that's why I say like it's so much more than physical, because me and you, I know that we've had like our seasons, right? We've had our seasons where things are great. We've had our seasons where things were dry. We've had things like seasons where it's like, what's going on, to like, okay, this is a lot,
and a lot of work can do a lot of that,
right?
But for sure, I mean, in a personal, like our personal sex life, without giving too much detail, things had to get worse before it got a lot better.
Yeah, I mean,
that's kind of, I believe that's a normal thing. I mean, I'm not sure. Like you said, everything is kind of different for every couple.
Right.
But for us, for sure, things had to get worse.
Yeah.
And
we were also our only person.
Right. You know? So all the exploring was done within each other. But what I'm trying to say is, once that honeymoon phase was gone, that infatuation, what you're left with is just love. And I'm not talking about the romantic kind. I'm talking about the patient kind.
Yeah.
The love is patient kind, right? And a lot of it. A lot. A lot.
Sorry, babe.
I'm serious. You know, and it comes down to like just that understanding. This is why you have to have that patience, right? Because to understand is like that moment where it talks about how you have to be slow about everything, slow to respond, slow to anger. You know, you just have to come down to an understanding. And when she doesn't want it, I mean, try to look at the outside of it. Why doesn't she want it?
Right.
You know, try to understand what's going on here.
Well, that's the thing too. I mean, it's even like most. And again, this is just more of like a general broad like statement or majority, but there's obviously exceptions where most women, to be like ready to go, like their minds just have to be at ease. They're like, it's like I'm like trying not to like get into detail, but also like the way to explain it, I always say it's like, you know, when you turn on the car, you got to warm the engine up. Like there's a thing versus most guys are like, let's go.
Guys, fellas, I mean, we know we're ready to go.
It's just like, boom.
It's like the minute, it's like she could just say, you want to do this now? Like, yeah, sure. Let's go, you know, like
versus vice versa. That's not usually how it works for a woman.
And then it's tough too, because I'm not the romantic type. So, you know,
which people
there's
would probably be surprised, because sometimes you definitely come off like you are romantic and you have your romantic gestures.
Right.
But Xavier's definitely the more like...
The thing is, people sometimes confuse romance with the service. Like, I give a lot of public service, and it's out there. Like, oh, no, he's very caring and this and that. But that comes into the service of love. Yeah. And people might consider that as romantic, but it's not. Romantic, for her, romantic is like...
Yeah.
Romance is... I mean, this is where it starts diving into communication,
right?
Because communication is also one of the struggles that we're going to talk about. But this is where it starts diving into the languages, okay? Because how
does your partner receive love?
Right, and how does your partner receive that romance?
Right, yeah.
You know, because that romance for her is gift giving. It's like giving her flowers. She likes boxes for some reason. I'm not judging her, but that's something that she likes. You know,
leave me alone.
That's something that she likes, and
quality time.
Yeah, there's. I would say those are the major ones: gift giving and quality time.
Yes. Meanwhile, Xavier is the one. Actually, it's so funny. I was just doing a bride's makeup today, like her trial. So we were talking about actually like love languages, and I was saying how I'm one that likes gifts, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like a big gesture. Something that tells me that, oh, you thought of me like today, you know? And so I was saying how like I remember one time, I know you love like gummy bears and all of that. Like Xavier's like the candy gummy
I like gummies.
Obsessed man. Yeah. So I remember I made like a big basket. I was like, let me show him how much I love him. I grabbed like a big basket. I put all this like candy in there. I grabbed like the whole like foil, or not the foil, the plastic wrapping, put it in a bow, try to put like a whole cute thing. And then like for him, it's all like, oh, thanks. Like, wow, you got me candy. Thanks. And I'm here like, what do you mean? Like, I got you more than that.
She was expecting a better reaction.
You know, but for him, I've realized that to get that, like, wow kind of reaction is like, if he comes out of work and has like a cup of coffee and dinner made, he's all like, I have the best wife in the world. Yeah. Yes. And it's not, and again, like the whole point of love languages is not that you do one and not the other, because we need all of them, right, to be able to have like the full,
one requires more than the other.
Right. So that's it for you.
yeah. And just going back, you know, like when someone says, or someone sees me more as a romantic type, what they're seeing is just the service that I'm giving, and they might see that as romance because they might like the service. Yeah. But that's just the way I'm showing my love. Yeah. And she receives it, but not the way I would receive it if it was the other way around.
Right.
So all this to say that showing romance is important. And especially, you know, if you show this romance and you expect sex, they both, they both go hand in hand. Yeah. And she's always saying it. It's like you have to make a connection before you make a connection. You know, like
I don't remember saying that, but
no. She's always that's my thing. She's always saying that you have to make a connection. I'm always saying you have to make a connection before you make a connection. You know, like
you're so annoying.
You know, and I mean, let's be mature about it. That's the legitimate way to look at it. Right. You can't connect with someone in any way if you don't like try to like communicate or show love in the way that they expect to be received.
The way I would almost say it, it's like, let's say
the way that they would expect to receive it. There you go.
The way I would almost say it, it's like you don't just call a friend after not talking to them for like months and be like, hey, I need a favor. Yeah. You know, you just like, hey, what's up? Like, how's it going? And obviously, again, it's different for everyone, right? But that's just how it is for a majority of girls. Like it's not as instant as it is to men. And that's something that I had to learn in marriage, where I'm like, whoa, like guys are just very like just ready and stuff. And so like learning to have that balance of like, okay, this is how you are, this is how I am, what's the middle ground here? Yeah. You know, so I think that was like a really important lesson, and just, you know, realizing that, you know, sex, again, just, it's not just physical. There's so much more. There's been times where I just feel like I've grown closer to you as a person. Like I just feel so much closer to you, you know, and I feel like obviously like the love grows and everything, but it's so much more than just like, wow, this felt great. It's more of like, wow, I just feel the intimacy with you. Yeah. Like that is my husband, you know? So it's a beautiful thing. And there's a reason why it is a gift, you know, to your marriage.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And, you know, and now going into communication, to touch on it, we want to get into expectations as well. Mm-hmm. Communication can be a struggle because communication looks different for everybody. And before going into marriage, you need to take care of expectations. Yeah. Sex being one of them. It's like, what are you expecting out of it? Yeah. You know, because the both of you might be ready to go in the beginning, but then what happens when that fades away? Because it will happen.
Yeah, I think that definitely happened to us, where I thought just because if maybe things aren't happening that we're good, and then here there's the expectation of you of like, why isn't this happening maybe as frequent as I wanted or expected? But none of us were saying anything. Right. And that was building
and
attention.
And all it was just bottling up.
Right. And all we had to do was just say like, hey, what's going on here? It's at least early on, it's a weird, tough topic to touch on, because it's like whoa, why are you attacking me? It's like sex should come naturally and beautiful and stuff. But you know, there are certain things that does take effort, you know, and, you know, going back to like how we said we were just the only person that we've been together, there was like learning things, you know, but all of this comes with communication. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. This makes me uncomfortable. This doesn't, you know, like there's just so much more that goes into it. And for people that ask themselves like, okay, but if I didn't test drive the car before purchasing it, how am I supposed to know that we're, you know, like super compatible or whatever the case is? And you just end up realizing that it just, the more you do something, the better you get at it.
Yeah.
You know,
it becomes a practice.
Right. And it's like, yeah, there's some things also just naturally happen, but also like, you know, the way me and you started is not the way me and you are now, you know, and that all came with time. That all came with communication. That all came with love at the end of the day. Yeah. You know,
I mean, that even comes down to the whole idea. Like I always say this, love is a choice.
Yeah.
You know, and having sex with somebody and let's say it's not what you expected, but you have to put work at it. It's the same with love.
Yeah.
Love isn't some mythical thing that's in the air and
it just boom,
like,
happens.
It's just there and you just feel like, oh my God, it's so tangible. I can feel it, this and that. There's no way that I can disconnect from. No, love is a choice.
Yeah.
It is something you have to work at.
Yeah.
Okay. Because in the beginning, when you're blinded by the love, that's not really love. That's infatuation.
Right.
Sometimes it's lust. There was one time I heard it was a saying that I heard, it was lust at first sight and not love at first sight.
Yeah.
And it's true. You know, when I heard that, I was like, yo, that blows my mind because it's so true.
I mean,
you get so infatuated by the way somebody looks or by the way they feel or by the way they talk to you or they kiss you or whatever the case may be, that you, once that temporary emotion goes away, whether it's a year or 2 years from now, what you're left with is a real situation of, do I love this person?
Right. Because in the beginning, you're so willing to do anything because you're like, you know, in my case, I'll be like, oh my gosh, he's just so cute. And the way he hugs me, he gives me butterflies and he this. But at that time, it's like, okay, now bring a real life situation and take away the caressing and this. Yeah. Are you still going to stay with that person? Yeah. That's where love really comes in.
That's where that patience is going to come into play.
That's where you really learn, though. So it's like, it is a beautiful stage, right? Like I think about it now and I'm like, oh, like I still remember the stage of like,
it's really cute,
you know, getting like the little butterflies of like, oh my gosh, he texts me, like, should I call him, should I not? And I still remember like the first time you like called me and I think we had like just gone out and I see your phone number and I remember I was in Walmart with my mom and I was like, oh my gosh, like he's calling me. I was like, do I answer? Do I not? And I remember I was thinking, I was like, oh my gosh, but if I don't answer, is he going to think that I'm ignoring him?
Meanwhile, I'm on the other, because I remember this too, because you did end up picking up. But you picked up mad late. I'm here like, yo, like she's taking a while to answer this phone call.
Yeah, and then
like,
I remember
was about to go to voicemail.
It really was. And I remember just thinking like, hello? Like, but meanwhile, I just went through like this whole tormenting thing. Yeah. But it's a beautiful thing, right? To think of like, oh my gosh, like that whole beginning stage, like it's just the beginnings of things are very beautiful. But also you realize that as that gets stronger and also starts fading away, it's like you start to learn what true love is, right? Because at the age of 14, if I think about like my first or whatever boyfriend, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like he was my first love. And I'm like, girl, no, you wasn't. Like you barely even know this person.
At the age of 14, we went out. What are you talking about?
I'm talking about before that.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, that was at the age of 13, first of all.
But you know, you think you're in love with someone and then you get to the core root of like what love really is, and then you're like, oh,
yeah. I mean, that infatuation, we even have to be careful with it because, you know, you can be so infatuated with somebody you don't even see the red flags, and all the warnings that people are telling you, like, hey, don't go with this person. Hey, I won't give you my blessing for this person. Hey, this person doesn't fit you. Yeah. They're giving you the red flags. God's giving you the red flags. You're making this prayer where it's like, no, like I want God to answer me. And then he sends people your way. But then you're like, no, that's not God. That was you. You know, like it's just that infatuation will keep you away from. Yeah. That infatuation will keep you away from the truth. Yeah. So you really have to be careful when you really have to be careful. You have to really discern whether whether it's infatuation.
It's hard
love.
though, because think about it. Think about even early on, when you're so like into this person is just like glowing and perfect.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
That's just.
I think I'm kind of losing my communication part here.
We went on
the next thing that we want to talk about. No, so with communication, after the infatuation's gone, after you're left with just love and the patient kind, you're left with also struggling with pride.
Yeah.
Pride is one of those things that comes up, and it's something that you have to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that you do have to dive into.
Yeah.
And it's something that you do have to self-dissect. Yeah. You have to see who the prideful one is.
Yeah.
Because it could be the both of you, or it could just be one of you.
Ooh, and I think in our case, like, we learned that both of us are very, very
stubborn
strong,
and prideful.
And it's very like, oh well. And he's like, yeah, oh well. And I'm like, good. And he's like, good. And then it just keeps going. And I'm like,
goes nowhere. And no one cracks,
So it definitely, with communication, we've learned like, okay, we need to chill out. We need to like find a way of how to resolve this. And I would definitely say I feel like communication is probably one of like the strongest things, like one of the strongest attributes in our marriage. And it's come through trial and error.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's come through times where we thought we were communicating and we were nowhere near communicating.
Yeah.
And things again had to get really bad for it to be like, okay, how do we fix this? Because this is like not good.
Yeah. Yeah. And the lack of communication, even though we thought we were, I think what it was is that we weren't communicating in the correct way.
Yeah.
We were communicating nonsense in a sense.
Yeah.
And it takes a while to discover, what it is, but that's why it's always like this idea. There's times where people will give advice to other couples, and I don't like this at all, because communication looks different for everybody.
Yeah.
And the first thing they'll sometimes tell you is, oh, don't over communicate. Don't over talk. There's no need for that. Just like sometimes it's just better to stay quiet. And I don't think that's great advice, only because that looks different for everybody.
Yeah.
I would say communicate the most that you can, and then work your way down from there.
Yeah.
Because that way you can realize, okay, we don't need to dissect it that much.
Well,
because I feel like we got to a point where it's like we were talking about everything to the point where it's like, no, it has to be right here, right now, and we can't do anything until we figure it out.
Yeah. But we were like that for a long time, actually, where...
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Like,
and that was me, actually. I feel like...
No, it was the both of us.
Yeah, I feel like I implemented that a lot.
Because I remember in the beginning, you did not want to communicate.
Yeah.
In the beginning, you didn't want to talk at all.
Yeah.
But then I was like, no, you have to talk. We have to figure this out. And then
I couldn't shut up.
But then I regretted it. She didn't want to shut up.
Well,
then
it got to the
it was
point.
Like, man, maybe you shouldn't talk that much. No, but in all seriousness, I had to get it to the point where we were really discovering where we were.
Yeah.
And where we needed to be.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we got to a point where we were over communicating, right?
Yeah.
Because then we were able to drop down from there and adjust.
Right.
Rather than prolong this, maybe we should do a little bit more. Just start from the top and go down.
Well, I think too,
because at least from the top you could still fix it.
Right.
And the bottom it's like, well, I don't want to fix it.
Yeah. I think too that there's a difference between communicating and between nagging. Right. Because communication is meant to send a message, and nagging is like the same message is being repeated, where obviously that's like over communication. Like, you've already stated this, and if the person isn't listening, then you need to state that, hey, you're not listening, whatever the case is. But I think that I don't know if I ever got to a point where I was just like super naggy. I probably did, because I know I can talk a lot. But I just feel like we had to definitely like learn, like, okay, like, I know this already. Let give the person a chance, right, to actually change, to do what they've got to do.
Yeah.
But it's just the different seasons of communication.
Yeah. I mean, but this is now where it starts going into picking your battles.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning it was like, okay, now we're borderline nagging at each other,
right,
for everything, and we're picking at each other for everything.
Like every little thing, I'm gonna tell you every second of every day how I'm feeling.
Right. And it was just like, but this is, again, going back, this is us. You get me? Maybe your relationship does require this amount of communication. Right. But for us, it got to a point where it's like, okay, we don't really have to talk about everything. You know what? As a matter of fact, I'm too mad right now, so let me just walk away. Let me just walk away from this, because there's anything that I say at this point is just going to be, I'm just going to regret it. Yeah,
I feel like that was probably our latest lesson.
Yeah.
Like,
I want to say
our latest in our marriage.
Right. But what was that, like a year and a half ago?
No, I know, but that's our last lesson, like learn type thing, where it's like, okay, because I used to be one where it's like, if we're mad, we need to settle it like right now, and we're not leaving until we get better. And I'm almost like, be better with me, you know? And then when it was required of me, I realized that within myself, and even still sometimes till now, where I just need to be careful, because when I get overly mad, I can be really hurtful with my words, and words are just something that you don't take back. And if you said something to really scar the other person, like you probably don't even mean it, but it's just, you're just so angry in that moment that it's like you now hurt the other person. And even though you guys can forgive each other, those words might still linger on.
Yeah. I mean, those words can cause a memory.
Right.
Those
exactly.
words can call emotional abuse.
Exactly.
Those words can, you just have to be careful because of how painful, how scarring those things can be. Yeah. I mean, that's like in the verse, where do I have it here? I know it's in James. I want to read it. Where did it go? Oh, here it is. It's James 1:19 through 20. Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quiet to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. For the anger of man does not produce righteousness of God. And that's what she's talking about. When you get angry, you end up falling into what the flesh has to offer, basically.
Right.
You end up falling into these major regrets, starts saying things you didn't mean to say, doing things you didn't mean to do. You know, that's why we're saying sometimes you should pick your battles, and it may be better to just walk away. Or if walking away isn't something that you have, isn't something that's there at the moment, right? You're stuck in this room for whatever reason.
Oh, like it hasn't been something established.
No, what I'm trying to say is, for whatever reason, you can't walk away. Let's just say you can't walk away from the argument. Okay. So you have to stay in the room. Instead of constantly talking, take pauses. I do it all the time. If we're arguing, she knows. It can sometimes get really awkward, and I'm just sitting there. But I think about my responses, because if I don't think about my responses, it's gonna either sound stupid or just it's gonna be something wrong.
Right? Like there's legit been times where I'm like, well, like, what about this and blah blah blah, and he's just like, and he's just there, and I'm here like, well, like, you know, and I'm like, what's your response?
Yeah.
But I've also, like, it used to irritate me because I'm like, hello, like, we're talking. Why are you not answering fast enough? But now I realize, I'm like, well, he's thinking about carefully what he's saying.
Right, because if I say something
before things get worse, right? And it's funny because I, again, used to be one that just wanted it, and then, like, now, right then and there.
Yeah.
And now I feel like I've definitely became this person where I'm like, I need to walk away.
Yeah.
Because if I stay here any longer, I'm gonna say some really bad stuff.
I mean, this doesn't happen often. It doesn't happen to us all the time. Most of the time we can, but there are intense arguments. There are intense moments where it's just best to walk away.
Yeah. And there's been times where I'm like, I walk away, I need my time. And again, we're so different with our timing. You know, I'm one that, like, needs maybe a good solid hour sometimes, and I'm just all like, after that, like, I literally come back and I hug him and I kiss him, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, like, this is really stupid, like, you know, whatever, and that's it. But had we continued it, it could have prolonged until who knows how long. Right. And like, versus him, I feel like you're one that's like so quick to like flip, but also like, it's just, everyone has a different process. And I think that with communicating, we've also have learned a lot about ourselves.
Yeah.
You know,
and also, Go ahead.
Within these 7 years of marriage, like we've just learned much more about who we are as individuals.
Yeah.
What our ticking points are, what are things that trigger us, what are things that soften us, what are like, because there's comes points where I'm like, you know, I have things ready for him. I know what he wants to say. And I'm here like, oh, do you mean this? And he just turns around. He's all like, babe, I love you. Like, you're my wife. You know, it's because like I've just learned from that communication. I've just learned who you are. I've learned that like if I see something happen, I'm like, ooh, he probably doesn't like that. Look at him. And I'm like, okay, how can I like calm down his anger or his buildup that's about to happen, you know? So, but these are all things that you learn through communication. Yeah. And it's like the more you communicate, like it could only get better.
But don't expect to get that figured out all in one shot either.
I mean,
because
no,
we're talking years.
7 years.
It can happen sooner for some people if you communicate better. It took us a while.
I don't think sometimes it's even communication. Sometimes it's also like your patience.
No. What I'm saying is that whole idea of that ability to figure it out, know who I am emotionally, and if something doesn't, you know, like how to change something before something really blows me up.
Yeah.
You know, that comes from a level of communicating. That comes from a level of understanding your significant other. But it takes wanting to understand in order to get there.
Like you make that as a goal, basically. And that was one thing that I've always wanted. It's like, okay, I'm not God to know what you're thinking, but it's like as your, you know, God-given helper, like I want to be able to do what I can to make this as smooth as possible. Because if I'm in your life trying to make your life better and you're here trying to make my life better, we're both like at a level, you know, ground where we're like both striving for happiness, both striving for a better marriage, you know? And it's like the more selfless you are, like you just realize if both of you are selfless towards each other, it's like it's even, you know, no one's lacking anything. And so it's been a beautiful journey, I will say. But yeah, that was just one thing for sure where I'm like, I need to know what your trigger points are. I'm like, 'cause sometimes this man just looks pissed off, and I'm like, what happened? What went wrong? Where? But it's beautiful when you have that. Like, I mean, even just like not that long ago, you were like, all right, relax. You're getting anxious, you know?
Oh, you mean just now?
Yeah, actually, literally just now. And it was true. Like, I was going to get to a point where I'm like,
But it took a lot of patience for me to do that.
But I'm just saying, like, you know, the more selfless like we become and the more you communicate, the more you learn about the other person and you see patterns, and it just all flows beautifully together.
Yeah. And, you know, this also goes into, you know, because this talking about communication and talking about how to communicate in the proper way. She knows how to communicate to me or find ways to make me better by speaking to me with respect.
Yeah.
And I know how to do the same thing, but through security and comfort.
Oh yeah.
And this just goes like as a piece of advice for not only for arguments, but let's say persuasion as well. You know, if you want something from your significant other, from your spouse, you have to understand gender. You have to understand a female and females. You have to understand a male. Our
mindsets and how just we work as people. Yeah.
Women, when you speak to a man, understand that a man wants to be respected day in and day out.
Yeah.
So when he goes to a job, he wants to be respected.
Yeah.
When he speaks to someone, he speaks with them with authority. Well, I should hope so. He speaks with authority. He speaks with respect. That's
because that's what he expects to receive back.
That's what he's. And then whereas a woman, what they need is comfort and security. They need to know that what it is that you want or what it is that you're saying is going to help them feel secure. If you can't help them feel secure, they're gonna get anxious. They're gonna get nervous. They're not gonna like where this is going.
Right.
But if you talk to him, and then now the other side, the flip side, now if you talk to a man where it's just like belittling him, making him feel less of a man, guess what he's gonna do?
Yeah, he's gonna flip.
Exactly.
Yeah, because man, like, we just listen to things differently.
Right, and so don't come at a man, women, don't come at a man trying to speak with
your
security, a man,
a
man in general. Right? Apply this to your husband, but this is men in general. Don't come at a man speaking with security and comfort, right? And expecting the same result that you would get from speaking with respect and authority.
Yeah. And it's not to say that women don't want respect and, you know, don't like, because we all want to be respected, right? And same thing for men. Men want to be spoken to where they feel the comfort and security and the love, right? Because, you know, at the end of the day, it's not that we don't need it. It's just almost like what our priority is, right? For women, we're all about just like, okay, where's the security? Is it risky? Is it this? You know, how much love is he pouring into, you know, it's a lot softer and it's softer. But that's how God wired us.
But imagine if you were to go a woman to your husband, right? If you were to go to your husband and you need something done right then and there, or you need to persuade him in some way. Imagine if you were to just say, hey, babe, I know you're the head of the household and I respect what you're saying, but what if you just did it like this? Yeah. What if you, maybe this might change? And I guarantee you that it's going to be like, let me think about it. It's not going to be like, no, that's not how it is.
Right.
No.
Right. Yeah.
And then on the other side, it's like, babe, you know, like, listen, I know that it might be, let's say, a big purchase, right? I know that it's a lot of money, but listen, I got this coming in. I'll be able to pay for it, but I want to buy this. And as long as we got everything else covered, we should be fine.
A woman is most likely to like, okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, the woman's going to be like, well, yeah, I mean, okay, fine. I mean, if everything's good, why not?
Let's think about it. Like, yeah. It's just.
You just got to be rational. You just got to learn how to speak to your other.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. What is it? What is the way that they like to be spoken to and how do they communicate? Like, so they're all very important, you know, like, and. Yeah, it's just something that, again, we had to learn because, again, both of us being very strong-headed and me, like, you know, growing up in a household where it was my mom and, you know, my dad passed away when I was younger. So my mom did raise me up to be a very independent female woman that you can do things your way. And
but that was because of the situation.
Because of the situation, because my mom had no idea how to handle anything. She didn't even know how to write a check. So what happened was, as I was growing up, she's all like, I'm going to raise you to be a strong, independent woman and this. So me coming up all huffed and puffed and, you know, whatever, coming in here thinking like, well, we're like this. And the whole idea of even like being the man, being the head of a household would like make me cringe. And I was all like, what do you mean? Like, I have the say or like I this, you know, like there was a lot of humbling. There was a lot of God working within me.
God working
within me and vice versa.
Lord, thank you, Lord.
And vice versa. You know, I always say I have a very spicy Puerto Rican husband that is just
Puerto Rican Peter.
He's got
slice.
He's got extra spice on him, you know, and from him coming also all huffed and puffed, coming to talk to me, someone who I always tell him, I'm like, babe, I'm a flower. I'm delicate. Like when you talk to me, just talk to me in the sweetest way. And I will do anything for you. And I'm like, that is like your secret. I'm like, just talk to me in the sweetest way. And like, I will do it for you. Like I will like melt and mush and stuff. But he's had to learn like, you know, that lesson along with also like, okay, I got to chill out on my attitude versus like, why this? It's like, babe, I love you so much, but like, you know, there's just different ways of communicating.
And you know, speaking about a different way, something that some people might not realize, but communication within prayer, although it's not communication within your spouse, communication within prayer is still communication within your marriage.
Oh yeah, I agree.
There was something I heard that was really beautiful, and it speaks to so much volume, right? If you don't pray, you'll become prey. So if you don't pray, you'll become prey to your flesh.
Oh,
prey. Become a prey to your enemy. Okay? Become prey to demonic oppression. Become prey to unsolicited advice that want people que se quieren meter, chismosos. Things that can damage your marriage. Prayer is one of those things where, man, it works wonders. And I want to say that our relationship honestly started getting even better when it came when prayer, when our spiritual life started to increase. Sure, we were always Christians, and sure, we always tried to grow as Christians, but we did this huge jump. I want to say about 2 years ago, and that's when we started really seeing the fruits of that. You know, and And it happened because of one specific thing. See, when you pray, or when I pray, let's say me, right? I'm telling you my experience. When I prayed every night, I would pray, God, help change Adrian. Mold her. Make her the wife that she needs to be for me. Right? There's nothing wrong with that prayer.
No, there isn't.
There's nothing wrong. You're asking God for something. God understands that you're struggling. But try this. God, change me if there's anything wrong.
Yeah.
Don't change my wife.
Yeah.
If she doesn't need changing, if I'm the problem, reveal it to me.
Yeah.
Change me if I'm the issue. Because I can't see it for myself. But you know best.
Yeah.
Once that happened, man.
Yeah. How
everything started changing. And you want to know what the first thing happened? She discovered that I had a porn addiction.
Yeah. Wow.
It was the darkest day for me.
Yeah.
But it was the brightest day.
Yeah.
Because immediately when that happened, I started seeing that I had issues. I started seeing my pride. I started seeing my bad habits. I had to go to therapy. I started seeing toxic behavior.
I think you also...
It was a whole different mindset.
Yeah.
As soon as I opened up that selflessness
All right. Yeah.
within myself.
I think also you were able to figure out the roots of a lot of your anger.
Yeah.
Too. And there was like just room for God to come in for healing.
Yeah.
You know, and this actually reminds me of, do you remember when we did marriage counseling with Pastor Nato and Julie? And I still remember till this day, like this like image or a diagram that they showed us. And it was basically how it's like, okay, Xavier, like you are here and Adrian, you are right over here, right? And then God is right here at the center at the top. If Adrian is constantly going after God and Xavier is looking after God, as you guys are drawing closer to God, you guys are also drawing closer together.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a beautiful thing to be able to see like, okay, not only is me seeking God also going to benefit my own personal spiritual life, but it's also going to draw me closer to my other partner if we both,
because we're getting closer.
Because we are both deciding to get closer to God, you know? And I think that like that always stuck with me, and it's like I see it, you know, I see it now more than ever, where I'm like, wow, like it's so true. Like even though we're busy and we're doing this and that, like we're drawing closer to God, but we're also seeing how our love for each other is increasing, even in the moments when we're busy, even in the moments that we're serving. It's like God just has a way of working his things.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, and that actually starts touching into our next struggle, which is spirituality and spiritual growth in a sense, right?
Yeah.
Because like you said, if Adrian's going up towards God and Adrian's going up towards God.
You said Adrian twice.
I did?
Yeah.
Adrian and then Adrian. No. So if Adrian, sorry. So if Adrian's going up closer to God, but Xavier's also going up, we're also getting closer together, right?
Yeah.
But what if I'm not?
Right.
Which was what was going on in our case.
Yeah.
You know, there was a moment in our lives where we were struggling spiritually, and, you know, in our marriage, our connection with God as a married couple was struggling.
Yeah.
She was growing. She was growing in the church. She was being more active. She was doing more things, right? But I was staying stagnant.
Yeah.
And that's where we have to be careful too, because it's like you can also get married to a Christian, but that doesn't mean that he's walking like a walking active Christian.
Salvation's individual, right?
Is a walking acting Christian. Yeah. My parents would always say it, la salvación es individual. Blah, blah, blah. No. But it's true. It is true. Yeah. And I only say blah, blah, blah because, like, bro, I heard that all a kid. My life. Yeah. You know, like, next to, you don't even know how to wipe your butt. But, yeah, you know, it's like, it's so true. The salvation is individual.
Yeah.
And she can't carry my weight. I have to go up closer to God on my own. Yeah. I have to do that for myself.
Yeah.
But because I wasn't, we were struggling as a couple to get closer to God.
Yeah.
And our marriage, as a result, our marriage was struggling.
Yeah.
And that's why when I said, as soon as I started flipping the way I started praying, that's when things started changing for me. That's when things started opening up. My eyes started opening up to the sins that I had. My eyes started opening up to the changes that I needed to make. And we're not perfect. We're not a perfect couple by no means.
No.
We're still working and we're still learning every single day, but we're getting better.
Yeah.
We're getting better.
Yeah.
You know, although we have 7 years in our belt, I can't say that all that 6+ of that was great. No, sorry. 5 years of that was great. There were rocky moments. There were great moments, but there were rocky moments in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. No, I agree. And I've always said too that it's like the whole reason of being equally yoked, you know, isn't just like, oh, is he Christian or is he not Christian? It goes so much further than that, because someone could say they're Christian, but then their lifestyle and all of that is still like rocky. Or maybe you're just like, again, maybe you're someone who is just in your spiritual level or maturity, I'm going to say, because it's weird because like you don't know what the other person's like spiritual maturity is, but some things are kind of evident, right? Like if you are one person that is constantly in communication with God, your fruits will show it, right? The way you walk, the way you talk, it's like evident, like, oh, this person like is walking with God, and you could tell that they're serving God, they're fearing the Lord and all of this, versus like someone who maybe might be new and might be like excited, but still like lacks wisdom or maybe even discernment. Like there's so many things that are telling of someone's spiritual maturity. So I think when it comes to marrying someone now, I think being equally yoked just goes so much further than like, are you Christian? It's like, how serious are you about God? Like, how much do you love God? And again, we both grew up Christian, but there were differences, you know, and even with myself, like, you know, I went for a moment where it was like, I was always Christian, and then I just got like kind of sick of it, and I wanted to experience the world, if you will. And then, you know, things got rocky, and, you know, it's just been a constant, like, you know, climbing. But that's where it is beautiful to be equally yoked with your partner, because
when you're at a lower point in your spirituality, the other person can take over and remind you, like, hey, you know, that's not the way we should be walking. Or, hey, let's go here. And, hey, I know you don't want to go to church today. I know you're tired, but we should. Let's do this.
It's little subtle things like that, but it's things that we need, right? Because we all grow tired. We all grow just your flesh is always wanting to chill. Your flesh always wants to like, I don't really want to. I could tomorrow. But if you have someone who's accountable with you, and they're wanting to seek the Lord along with you, they're not just going to be like, okay, like it's fine. It's going to be like, but why? Like, let's go to church. Like, let's seek God, or let's read his word. You know, that's just the beauty. That's just the whole point, right? That was the whole point in being equally yoked, and iron sharpening iron. Like, there's just so much to it. And I have always grown up with that example. Well, at least for the very early childhood part of my life, because again, like my father passed away when I was about 5-6 years old, but I always grew up with that example of, hey, we have midweek, we had home devotionals. We had Bible stories. We had this. My mom would pray for me every night. Like, these are things that I grew up with that I didn't necessarily appreciate it. But now it's like, as I get older, I think of like, oh my gosh, my future children, I would love to have home devotionals with them, because a lot of their knowledge, not just secular, right? Not even just like the educational sense of like math or English or any of that. It goes further beyond that. You know, the spiritual life, what the Bible teaches, a lot of it starts from home with your children. And if you're unequally yoked, or if the other person just doesn't even care about that, it's going to be harder. You know, so I think that's something that we definitely grew up together. And one of the biggest things that I say is a blessing. There have been times where I've just been exhausted, where, I mean, you know my schedule. Sometimes I don't even know my schedule because it's just all over the place. But there's been times where we just lay down at bed and I'm just hugging him. And I'm like, babe, I'm so exhausted. Like, I'm at the point where I'm emotional because I'm so exhausted. And he already knows, like, damn, this girl is like beat. And I've told him plenty of times, I'm like, babe, can you like please pray for me? And then he's all like, okay, baby. He's like, let me pray for you. And I'm just like here, but like kind of dead and stuff. And then he's just like, you know, playing with my hair, but also praying for me. And, you know, so I do weddings full time. And so one of the funniest things that I just always like stands out to me is like when you're praying for me, you're like, Lord, just bless my wife, you know, that she's been really tired. I ask that you may give her strength for tomorrow, that even though she's getting 4 hours of sleep, that she may feel like she's had a full 8-hour sleep night.
Yeah.
And Lord, I ask that the brides that she's working with tomorrow, that they may feed her.
Oh, yes.
Let them give her breakfast.
Yeah.
And I'm just all like, amen, God. Amen. Please listen to
Yeah, because
that.
there's a lot of times where they don't.
They don't feed you. And it's been like 5-6 hour days. We're starting 5 a.m. and, you know, we eat something, but barely because it's too early.
Right.
And I feel like almost every single time you've prayed that, they're like, hey, don't forget to eat. And I'm like, thank you, Lord. You have not forgotten your servants.
Yeah.
But you
so
know,
true.
and it's for me, that's so precious. That's something that doesn't have a price to it. That's something that I'm like, this is all I've wanted like my whole life, you know, being able to have a husband that can pray for me in the time when I really need it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, and this starts to dive into, and I love how this is kind of like unraveling itself,
Yeah.
right? But this starts diving into the whole idea of something being 50-50. Because realistically, there's no such thing as 50-50, although
Yeah.
we want to make it that way. And the only reason why I'm linking those two is because you said, you know, there are moments where I'm tired and he does this.
Yeah.
Or you said there was moments where I wanted to stray away, or I didn't feel like doing this spiritually, let's say, but he reminded me, or vice versa. You know, and sometimes it's going to look like that in percentages in your marriages.
Right.
You know, and it's a struggle too, because you want it to be 50-50. You want it to be like no, if I'm giving my 50, you have to give your 50.
Yeah.
And that way we can be 100, and you know, and we can make mathematical sense. That's a reference. You'll see it later.
You'll see it at some point, maybe.
But it's not. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. And the reason why I say it doesn't is because sometimes all you can give is 30.
Yeah.
And then I can put in the 70.
Yeah.
Or the other way around. You know, sometimes I'm too tired and all I got is 20%. And you have to dish out 80.
Yeah. Like
But at the end of the day, whether this is spiritual or household, we have to make it work.
Yeah.
But sometimes we can't fully rely on the other spouse, and we have to understand that.
Yeah. I think for sure that was a lesson quickly learned.
Yeah.
Because it's like at times where maybe I wanted to be mad because you weren't giving your 50% when it was the other way around and I couldn't. I'm like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
I get why you couldn't give your 50. Like there's moments when I can't. I mean, I feel like lately I've been in this season of like, it's been so much work and so much like ministry life and so much of everything that sometimes at home I've been like, I don't even have time to make rice.
Right.
You know, or I don't have time for this. And where like, you know, at one point, and even sometimes now, like we'll try to kind of have a schedule of like, hey, you cook this day or you cook this week, I cook that week. Then there's times where it's all like, okay, I guess I'm going to have to cook 2 weeks in a row. Okay, I really can't, maybe 3 weeks in a row. So it's like, at the end of the day, it's like your household should be at 100%, right? Whether it's one person giving 80 or 90 sometimes, or even 100, depending how bad the situation is.
If you're sick,
That's
you
what I'm
literally
saying.
can't do that. It's all hundreds on me.
Right. So it just quickly understanding that that we are expected to perform at 100 is important.
Yeah.
You know, and being graceful with the other person, because quickly you can get mad that maybe it seems that the other person isn't giving. Now there's a difference between not giving because you're being lazy versus like not giving because you truly can't. Maybe whether it's physical, whether you're not present, or maybe you're just going through a mental moment, right? Where you're going through depression, where you're going through anxiety. Like there's so many reasons, right, that can happen. But I just feel like it's important to be graceful because it can happen to any one of us.
Yeah.
You know, like,
and honestly, I feel like doing this whole idea of 50-50 creates petty arguments.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, you didn't do this, so I'm not going to do this, you know, but then something still has to get done.
Yeah.
You know, and if nothing gets done, then all you're going to do is just fall in this cycle of not doing anything because the other person doesn't want to do it.
Yeah, I feel like you used to point that out to me because I know I would be petty like that sometimes. Like I'd be like, "Well, I didn't do this."
I only just brought it up. No, I'm kidding.
No, but I just remember I can't even remember what situations, but I do remember having arguments where I'll be like, "Okay, well, you didn't do this." He's like, "Okay, so that means you automatically are not gonna do it. Like you're making it worse. Like what? How are you helping this any better?" And I'm like, I'm not trying to help it. Like,
well, I mean, yeah, you would say something like that. It's like, well, I don't care. Like, you know, but that was the beginning. That was like, we were still learning and stuff like that. But definitely, you know, the 50-50 and especially when you have two stubborn, prideful people, you know, 50-50, it can hurt sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, it can hurt sometimes. I mean, even till this day, I'll claim to her and I'll tell her, I'm like, hey, you know, I've made rice 3 days in a row. Like, it's starting to feel unfair. It's starting to feel unfair, you know, or I've cleaned the house several times and I haven't seen you done it. It's starting to feel unfair.
Yeah.
And I can understand that. You know, if you're doing it constantly, it might start feeling one way, but also look at the situation.
Yeah.
You know, although you might be tempted to think selfishly, like, hey, you know, like I feel like this and I feel like this and I feel like that. Look into the other spouse. Look into your partner.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also where love comes in.
Yeah.
You know, love of like, okay, I'm here to understand this person. I'm here to see, like, even though this is frustrating me, I'm choosing to be patient. I'm choosing to love. I'm choosing to understand that, like, there's something beyond this, and there's a time to talk, there's a time to discuss, there's a time to try to figure out the plan, but maybe the person, I mean,
there's a time for everything under the stars.
Yeah. Right. And so like, you know, what I've been saying specifically, like, these past couple of weeks has been really crazy. So publicly, thank you for keeping it down. Thank you for holding down the fort, because it's been wild, guys.
Well, you're welcome.
Like, well, duh.
Well, yeah.
But there's been moments, you know, and just really quickly, because I know we want to get into the other portion, but I even remember early on, like when I started off my makeup business, you know, like Xavier decided, like, okay, I'm going to pay all the bills. I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
I'm going to work 60 hours.
Yeah,
I'm going to work 60 hours a week just so you can be able to build this, you know?
No, but I'm glad you brought that up, because that starts to bring up the other point.
Yeah.
You know, the last and final one is finances. Finances was a struggle. Finances is tough. And it's mainly tough because you get a spender and you get a saver, and they marry each other.
How dare you spend?
Boy, I'm the saver.
Yeah.
And it's a struggle, man. Like when you have to think about the finances, like, yeah, when I was handling the finances, it was easy because it was just me. So it was straightforward, and you know, whatever money came out, I controlled the bills and whatnot, right? But when we have to now,
and also to be fair, it wasn't in this weird, like, I control everything.
No.
It
I'm not saying
like
it that way. What I'm saying is, when I was just doing it, it was easy. But when both people are making money, it becomes difficult, because you feel entitled to something and I feel entitled to something.
Right. Yeah.
You want to spend, I want to buy my makeup, or I want to buy myself this hair product, or I want to buy myself this because I feel like I work and I deserve it. Right. And same vice versa.
That's Adrian's motto. That's like, yo, it's been a long week. I deserve this.
I deserve Chipotle. No, but for me, it's not normally like that, because I'm the saver. So although, yes, I might want to buy myself something, I won't, because I'll think to myself, like, nah, like I should probably save this. Like I could save this to do this. Or if I have spare money, what I'll do is I'll save it to buy something and then resell that to make more money.
Yeah.
You know, so that's just how I am.
Yeah. But meanwhile, me, it's like not like that. I'm very like, this is nice. I'm going to get it. Well, obviously it all depends, right? I think that, early on it was, I think, even harder for us because we were making barely anything. We
Yeah.
were like living paycheck to paycheck,
Right.
if that.
Right. And
you know?
and so what it had to come to was, what ended up working for us was kind of like a monthly recap.
Yeah.
And we had to make it work. I mean, we weren't
It's
making
like
a lot of money in the
extreme
beginning.
budgeting. Yeah.
And we had to like really write down everything that came out every single month.
Yeah.
And then we had to write out what did we do or what did we do wrong, and that was able to control what was going to happen for next month.
Yeah, like if we had credit card, like we wrote down everything. Like nothing was hidden.
We had credit card debt. Yeah. And that's the ugly part. So that's the ugly part that I wanted to get into in finances is the transparency in finances.
Yeah.
Because she has to tell me what she has in debt for credit card.
Yeah.
And I have to do the same. Yeah, and it's
I'll
not
be like,
easy.
it's this amount. And he's like, what do you mean? Like,
Right.
what did you spend it? And then you look at it and it's like makeup and this and food
Right.
and food.
And
food.
she'll
like,
have to explain herself, know, and if we went wrong, it's like, well, we can't do it this month, or now we have to cut back on this.
Yeah.
But everything about that is kind of linking all back to communication.
Yeah.
Because you have to team up. Finances is teamwork. Finances is a team effort. And if you don't make it as a team effort, you're going to lose as a team.
And isn't finances, if I'm not mistaken, one of like the top reasons for divorce?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Because when couples can't really focus or they struggle too much in finances,
It brings
what
on
it creates
stress.
is stress, and that stress turns into anger, and that anger turns into fights, that fights turns into verbal abuse, and so on and so on.
Then there's no communication, then there's all this, and there's no
it's just
sex.
chaotic.
It's just chaotic. Everything.
And finances, communication, sex, and there's one more I
we
forget.
talked spiritual life and stuff.
I would say, well, I'm talking about the legs.
Oh,
'Cause
the
somebody
legs.
told me the legs. There was like 4 legs to hold a chair up. It was like a whole metaphor. But those are 3 important ones, right? And if you can't have that, then your chair is going to be off balance and you're going to fall off.
Yeah.
So finances is if you
It's a
can't, like I said, if
major-
you can't make it a team effort,
Yeah.
you're not gonna succeed.
Yeah, and I think that early on, here we are married, everything's fresh, everything's new. I don't know what it's like to pay rent. I don't know what it's like to do anything. Now I don't have money, and now I also don't have money to go out, and now I'm frustrated, and now I'm also trying to okay, but I also have my marriage, and I also have to make sure I'm being a good wife, and I'm also, so it was a lot for sure. And I think that sometimes that's what played a big part into early struggles that we had, because everything was so new, but heavy responsibility all at once. And it was all gosh, how do I work with this? But I'm also really glad that we went through that, because I think about it now, and it's man, if we went through all of that, and we made it out, what a, glory to God, you know, because that's a lot of things that I think that we went through were grounds where some people might have just given up quickly. I would have been nah, this is too much. I can't do this.
But it takes that to get there. It takes that transparency.
Yeah.
It takes that willingness to say hey, I spent this, or hey, can I spend this? Asking.
Right.
The ugly part is asking permission to your spouse. Hey, can I buy this? Or some of us might want to say, oh, I'm going to buy this. I don't need her to say, give me permission.
And I would say this looks
right
different.
there, you fail.
Yeah, this looks different from person to person. I would say usually you want to communicate that.
Yeah.
But I think
I'm talking about budgeting here.
Oh, budgeting.
I'm talking about when you're there's because glory to God, we have been blessed to be able to splurge a little bit that we can.
But even with that, we have limits, and we have things
Exactly.
that but we agreed on
we
that.
have moments where I do want to buy this $20 thing on Amazon, and I don't think I have to tell Adrian that I want to buy this, and same vice versa. But in the beginning, you'd have to get your finances straight.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it
If
was
you
a struggle for us because yes, I had to be transparent. Yes, I had to ask permission. If I wanted something and we didn't have the money and I went ahead and bought it anyway, we were going to be short for that month.
Right.
Possibly not be able to have groceries for that month.
All because
or
you
that
wanted
week.
this $20 item that
Exactly.
seems so inexpensive, but that equates to maybe not being able to pay your rent.
Yeah.
So those are things that, we definitely, now that I think about it, we really went through it as far as all right, this is what it is.
Yeah.
How
it was tough for us. It was tough for us in the beginning. We almost ended up in food stamps and
I remember
government aid and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not shaming anybody for doing it, because if you need it, you need it, right?
Right.
But what I'm trying to say is,
that's how crazy
we
things
were
got.
that low. We were at that point where it's like we really needed, and instead what we did was we told ourselves, like, no, let's just hunker down, let's just extreme budget and get out of this.
Yeah.
And we did it.
Yeah.
You know, all glory to God, but we did it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that all came with this teamwork mentality, right? Yeah. Not this like, well, I worked and I had this, and so like I just deserve this. It's like, no, don't look at the now. Look at the bigger picture. Yeah. Like, what the bigger picture is, if we maintain this lifestyle for a short time, you know, discipline ourselves to go through the trenches. Like, trust me, the other side is so much better. But you got to struggle a little bit, you know? And I feel like that's like it. That's like life, I feel, right? Those are trials sometimes that God gives us, where it's like, God, how much longer do I have to go through this? And God's just all like, I'm teaching you something here. I'm building you up. I'm building you up to the person that you need to be. But you can't get to that high part until you learn this lesson first. Yeah. You know, so it's memories. You definitely take me down memory lane.
It's funny, yeah, because we're talking about this and I'm just starting to remember life in Bayway.
Yeah.
You know, life in Elizabeth when we were in the beginning, and how, you know, 6 months into our marriage.
6 months into our marriage.
6 months into our marriage, I lost my job, and you were still at a part-time. It was rough.
Yeah.
It was rough.
Yeah.
You know, but all glory to God. You know, he does miracles. He does big and miraculous things. Mm-hmm. And when you go to him and you pray to him, things can change for you.
Yeah.
It changed for us, and there's no reason why it can't change for you.
Yeah. And it's definitely one of those things that I think about, like, and that's the beauty of like looking back sometimes, not to necessarily look at the pain, but to look at like how far you've come. And I'm just like, wow, this was just a couple years ago, you know, where things were just crazy, but with, you know, not only, you know, God's help, but also like the hard work, the work that we put in, like we're able to see the other side, and we're still going at it, you know, we're still going at it. But you know, all going back to like budgeting and financing, man, like it's ugly. I think talking about money ever is kind of ugly.
Even now. It can get ugly because you have to, you know, you have to say you messed up when you messed up, and you have to talk about it. So, but if you want to succeed, that's where you start.
Yeah. And again, like we were saying, this is very different for everyone. Like some people have different budgets. Some people have different rules. Just go back to that communication. Like, what is your guys' game plan? Yeah.
Yeah. But all right, guys, that really is the 5 struggles that we went through in our marriage. But we want to know what you think. We want to know if we may have missed a topic that's important for marriages.
Yeah.
Is there something that you struggled with? Mm-hmm. Is there something that you overcame? Let us know in the comments. Maybe we can even bring it up if it comes up for us, or it's like a memory thing. Like, oh yeah, that happened to us as well. We can bring it up on the next one.
Yeah, I mean, we're not, by no means are we like super experts or whatever, but I would say we have a good amount of experience under our belt, you know, to give some advice here and there.
Yeah. We'll get better as we go.
Yeah.
But all right, guys.
All right,
that is the end of this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you learned something from it. Mm-hmm. If you did, please let us know. Hit that like button. If you're not subscribed, subscribe.
Yes.
And by all means, do everything you can to help us grow this channel.
Yes.
Push this content out, because all of it is for the glory of God. All of it is to reach out to souls. And you're doing that little effort does a big thing to plant the seed.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see you guys on our next episode. Bye.
That pizza fell on the floor, right?
For 10 seconds.
5 minute rule. 5 minute rule. Hey, yo.